What if there are structures on Earth that modern engineers still struggle to explain? Not because they are large, not because they are old, but because of how precise they are. In different parts of the world, built by completely different civilizations, we find the same thing. Stone, cut with a level of accuracy that doesn't match the tools they supposedly had. In South America, massive blocks fit together so perfectly that not even a blade can pass between them. In Egypt, stones weighing tons were shaped with surfaces so smooth they look machine-made. And yet, these structures were built thousands of years ago. No steel tools, no machines, no modern engineering systems. Just stone and human effort. In this video, we're going to explore one of the most difficult questions in ancient history. How did ancient civilizations cut and shape stone with such precision? We'll examine the evidence in Peru, where stones were fitted together with almost impossible accuracy. Then we'll look at Egypt, where massive blocks were carved, transported, and aligned with remarkable consistency. And we'll compare both. Because these were not isolated achievements. They reveal something bigger, a level of understanding that we still don't fully explain. And that's where the mystery begins. Before we go further, let's be clear about what you're going to learn in this video. We're not just looking at ancient buildings. We're breaking down how stone was cut, shaped, and assembled with a level of precision that still raises questions today. You'll see real examples from Egypt and Peru. Understand the tools these civilizations are believed to have used, compare them with modern engineering, and explore the theories that attempt to explain how this was possible. Because this is not just history, it's a technical mystery. We begin in Egypt. When most people think of ancient Egypt, they think of size, the pyramids, massive structures rising from the desert. But size is not the most impressive part. Precision is. At sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza, the stone blocks are not just large. They are carefully shaped and aligned with remarkable accuracy. The base of the pyramid is almost perfectly level, and the sides are aligned closely with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with a precision that rivals modern surveying. This was done over 4,000 years ago. Now consider the material. Some of the stones used in Egyptian construction were not soft limestone. They were granite, a much harder rock. Granite is difficult to cut, even with modern tools. Today we use diamond-tipped saws and advanced machinery. The ancient Egyptians used copper, and copper is significantly softer than granite. So how did they cut it? Inside structures like the Temple of Karnak and across other sites in Egypt, you can find stone surfaces that are extremely smooth, flat, and consistent. Some cuts extend in straight lines over long distances, while others form precise angles. These are not rough shapes. They are controlled, intentional, and repeated. And that repetition is important because it shows this wasn't an accident. It was a system. One theory suggests that the Egyptians used sand as an abrasive. When combined with copper tools, sand can slowly grind down harder stone. This method works, but it is slow, extremely slow. Now compare that to the scale of their construction. Thousands of blocks, many weighing several tons, were cut, shaped, and fitted together. Even with modern equipment, this would take significant time and coordination. And yet, the Egyptians achieved it consistently. Another theory involves large ramps used to move the stone, but that explains transport, not cutting. The real challenge is not just moving stone, it is shaping it, and shaping it with accuracy. Compare this to modern construction. Today we rely on machines to maintain consistency, using computer-guided tools, laser measurements, and standardized processes. In ancient Egypt, none of that existed. And yet, the results show a level of control that suggests deep understanding, not just of materials, but of geometry and planning. This is what makes Egyptian construction so important. It is not just large scale, it is precise at scale. And that combination is rare. If you enjoy discovery videos, archaeology, scientific breakthroughs, and real stories based on facts, like and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. If Egypt showed us precision at scale, Peru shows something different. Here, the mystery is not just how the stones were cut, it's how they were made to fit. In this chapter, we examine the stonework of the Inca and why it challenges modern assumptions about construction, tools, and engineering. At sites like Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo, you find something unusual. Massive stone blocks, irregular in shape, yet perfectly connected. These are not simple rectangular stones stacked on top of each other. Each block has multiple angles, edges that curve, and surfaces that adjust to the shape of the stone next to it. And when placed together, they fit so tightly that there are no visible gaps, not even enough space to slide a thin blade between them. This is what makes Inca stonework different from Egyptian construction. In Egypt, stones are shaped into uniform blocks with straight edges and flat surfaces. In Peru, every stone is unique, and yet they all connect perfectly. That level of precision is difficult even today. Modern construction relies on standardization, identical pieces, and machine-cut edges. The Inca did the opposite. They worked with irregular forms and still achieved perfect alignment. Now consider the tools. Unlike Egypt, which had access to copper tools and abrasive methods, the Inca had even more limitations. They did not use iron, they did not have steel tools, and they did not use the wheel for construction. And yet, they shaped stones weighing tens, sometimes hundreds of tons. At Sacsayhuaman, some blocks weigh over 100 tons. These stones were not only cut, they were transported, positioned, and fitted with extreme accuracy. And once placed, they did not require mortar. This is important. Most ancient and modern structures rely on some form of binding material. The Inca did not. The stability comes entirely from the precision of the fit. And this had a surprising advantage: earthquakes. Peru is a seismically active region, where earthquakes are a constant risk. In modern cities, earthquakes can cause buildings to crack or collapse. But many Inca structures have survived for centuries. Because the stones are not rigidly fixed, they can shift slightly and then settle back into place. This flexibility makes them incredibly durable. Now compare this to modern engineering. Today we design earthquake-resistant buildings using advanced calculations, flexible materials, and reinforced structures. The Inca achieved similar results without any of that technology. This raises a key question. How did they shape each stone so precisely that it could connect perfectly with multiple others? One theory suggests repeated grinding and fitting, placing one stone, marking contact points, removing it, reshaping it, and repeating the process. This would work, but it would take an enormous amount of time and require consistent accuracy across hundreds of stones. Another idea is that they used smaller stones and tools to chip away surfaces gradually. Again, this is possible. But the level of smooth contact between stones suggests more than rough shaping. It suggests control. This is where Peru becomes difficult to explain. Because unlike Egypt, where straight cuts and flat surfaces follow clear geometric logic, Inca stonework adapts. Each piece responds to the one beside it, almost like a three-dimensional puzzle. And that kind of precision, without modern measurement tools, is extremely rare. By now, you've seen two very different civilizations, separated by distance, culture, and time. And yet, they solved a similar problem: how to shape stone with precision. Now, we compare Egypt and Peru directly to understand what they share and what makes them fundamentally different. Let's start with Egypt. Egyptian construction is based on order, with straight lines, flat surfaces, and standardized blocks. Everything is measured, aligned, and repeated. This creates structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza, where precision comes from consistency. Each stone follows a clear rule. Now look at Peru. At sites like Sacsayhuaman, there is no standard shape. Every stone is different. Angles change, edges curve, and surfaces adapt. And yet, the final result is just as precise. So we have two systems. Egypt builds precision through repetition. Peru builds precision through adaptation. Different methods, but the same outcome. That alone is unusual. Now consider the scale. Egypt focused on vertical construction, with massive structures rising upward. Peru focused more on horizontal stability, with walls designed to resist movement and pressure. This reflects their environments. Egypt is relatively stable, with fewer earthquakes. Peru is not, so their engineering responds to different challenges. But here's where the comparison becomes more interesting. Both civilizations worked with hard stone, achieved tight fits, and maintained consistency across large projects. And both did it without modern tools. No steel cutting equipment, no powered machinery, no digital measurement systems, just human labor and knowledge. Now compare this to modern construction. Today, precision comes from technology. Machines ensure uniformity, computers calculate measurements, and tools remove human error. In ancient Egypt and Peru, precision had to come from the people themselves. From skill, from experience, and from systems we don't fully see. This leads to an important conclusion. These results were not accidental. They were repeatable, and anything that can be repeated is understood by the people doing it. Which means both civilizations had developed methods, even if those methods were never written down. And that is the real challenge. Because what we see today is the result, not the process. We see the finished stone, but not the steps that created it. And that gap is where the mystery exists. Up to this point, we've looked at what was built. Now we look at something more difficult to explain: how it was built. In this chapter, we focus on the tools. Because when you compare the precision of these structures to the tools these civilizations are believed to have used, something doesn't fully match. In ancient Egypt, the primary metal available for cutting tools was copper. Copper is useful, but it is soft. Granite, on the other hand, is extremely hard. On the Mohs hardness scale, granite ranks significantly higher than copper. In simple terms, copper should not be able to cut granite efficiently. And yet, in Egypt, granite was shaped, smoothed, and fitted with surprising accuracy. At sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza and temples across Egypt, you find evidence of controlled cutting on hard stone. Straight lines, flat surfaces, and consistent edges. One explanation is abrasion, using sand as a cutting agent. When combined with repetitive motion, sand can slowly wear down harder materials. This works, but it raises a new problem: time. Because shaping even a single large granite block using abrasion alone would require enormous effort. Now multiply that by thousands of stones, and then consider alignment, placement, and finishing. Even with modern machinery, large-scale stone-cutting projects are expensive and time-consuming. To give context, if we attempted to build something like the Great Pyramid today using modern equipment, labor, and safety standards, estimates suggest it could cost anywhere between $5 to over $10 billion. And that's with cranes, precision tools, and advanced logistics. Ancient Egypt achieved comparable scale without any of that. Now look at Peru. The Inca did not have copper tools suitable for heavy stone cutting in the same way. No steel, no iron. And yet, at sites like Sacsayhuaman, stones were shaped into complex, interlocking forms. Not just cut, but matched. That is even more demanding, because each stone had to connect perfectly with multiple others. Today, achieving that level of custom fitting would require 3D scanning, precision cutting tools, and computer modeling. And even then, it would be expensive. If a modern team attempted to recreate walls like those at Sacsayhuaman using current technology and labor, the cost would likely reach hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on scale and accuracy. And yet, the Inca achieved it with manual methods. Now compare both of these to other ancient wonders. Take the Great Wall of China. It is massive in length, but much of its construction uses smaller, more manageable materials. Or consider Stonehenge. Impressive in placement and alignment, but limited in scale and complexity compared to Egypt or Peru. Even the Colosseum, while architecturally advanced, relies heavily on concrete and standardized building methods. Egypt and Peru are different. They rely on precision stonework at scale, and that combination is rare. This is where the tool problem becomes clear. It's not that ancient people lacked tools, it's that the tools they had don't fully explain the results we see. Which leads to the next question. If the tools don't explain it, then what does? So far, we've looked at the results, the precision, the scale, and the consistency. And we've seen the problem. The tools we know they had don't fully explain what they achieved. We see similar principles in other ancient projects. For example, the Great Wall of China was not built with advanced machinery. It was built through coordination over time. But again, scale becomes the issue, because coordination explains construction, not precision. Then there are more controversial ideas. Some suggest unknown techniques, methods that were developed, used, and then lost. This is not impossible. History shows that knowledge can disappear. The loss of the Library of Alexandria is often cited as an example of how large amounts of information can vanish. But without direct evidence, this remains a possibility, not a confirmed explanation. There are also more extreme claims, suggesting external influence or advanced technologies that we cannot verify. These explanations are popular, but they lack evidence. And without evidence, they don't help us understand the real process. So where does that leave us? Between what is possible and what is proven?